Section 119 in Hansen and Quinn's Greek Unintensive course is about reflexive pronouns, and you can find it in the book on pages 442 to 444. If we're going to talk about reflexive pronouns in Greek, we first need to learn what they are in English. Reflexive pronouns are pronouns that refer back to the subject of a sentence. In other words, they bend back towards the subject of a sentence or reflex back to the subject of a sentence, which is how they get their name. So in the sentence, I teach him, I am the subject, and him, that's some other person that I'm teaching. If I want to talk about teaching the same person as is the subject of this sentence, English doesn't let us say, I teach me. That doesn't sound right, and it isn't correct in English because it's using just a regular personal pronoun instead of a reflexive pronoun. English has reflexive pronouns too, so the correct way to say this would be, I teach myself. And another example, you could say, they teach them, but that implies they, one group of people, are teaching them, another group of people. If we wanted to make sure that our audience knows that they teach the same group of people that is teaching, then we're going to use the English reflexive pronoun themselves. They teach themselves. So that's just a couple of examples of English reflexive pronouns. And I think that one of the things that's tricky about all of this is that we use that myself, that self and selves suffix in a number of ways in English, even though Greek does it differently. So just remember that English uses it in particular ways, and one of the things that it does is reflexive pronouns. A couple more things before I start teaching you the actual Greek forms. Now, most pronouns you learn them in all of the cases. But logically, reflexive pronouns can't have a nominative case because they're always referring back to the subject of the verb. They can never be the subject of the verb. So when you learn reflexive pronouns, they will never be a nominative. It's going to be in singular and plural, and we're going to have first, second, and third person versions of them, and we'll first learn the first person. The next thing to know is that in the singular, you can kind of think about them as the words we're going to learn as combinations of some version of emos, my, and autos, that pronoun that you already know. And we're going to have to learn them in masculine and feminine. And you will choose, of course, and Greek will use, of course, the matching gender to whatever the subject of the sentence is. So, finally, let me show you some of these forms. In the genitive, it's emautou, emautes, to mean of myself. In the dative, it's emauto, emaute, to mean to or for myself. And emauton, emautein, for the accusative, myself. Now let's start thinking about the plural. So here what we're trying to do is correct, we can't say we teach us, we have to say we teach ourselves. So now we're going to learn the words for ourselves. And Greek in the plural for reflexive pronouns doesn't use just one word. They use the personal pronoun that you learned in section 118 plus autos as a separate word. So we're going to get hemon, auton for the genitive of the reflexive pronoun to mean of ourselves. Hemin autois or hemin autais, where the forms are different for masculine and feminine, to mean to or for ourselves or anything else you do with the dative. And then in the accusative, hemas autus or hemas autas, depending again on whether it's masculine or feminine, to use anything accusative that you need to say ourselves with. So that is your collection of first-person reflexive pronouns. Let's move on to the second person. So first, a couple of examples. You're not going to say you teach you unless the two different yous are different people. But if you are talking about teaching the same person that's doing the teaching, you have to say you teach yourself. And the same in the plural. Y'all teach y'all. Unless you're really talking about two different groups of people, you want to say y'all teach yourselves. So let's see how Greek does that. We're going to have a similar way of putting it together, the pronouns, as we did in the first person. So in the singular, it's almost as if it's some version of sauce plus autos in one word. And in the plural, it's going to be the personal pronoun, the second person plural, personal pronoun, plus the appropriate version of autos. So that comes out to be se autou or se autes for of yourself. Se auto, se aute in the dative to be to or for yourself. Se auton, se autain in the accusative for yourself. Now, one thing you need to know, Greek, Attic Greek especially, doesn't love a vowel sound next to another vowel sound. And as often as not, these se out forms will become sout forms and get contracted down to sautu, saute, sauto, saute, sauton, and sautain. So be on the lookout for that, but it doesn't change the meaning, and I don't think it will confuse you about which person of the reflexive pronoun it is. In the plural, again, personal pronoun plus autos, and so we'll get humon, auton for both masculine and feminine to mean of yourselves or anything else with a genitive. Humin autois or humin autais, to or for yourselves in the dative. Humas autos and humas autas, whether it's masculine or feminine, for yourselves. And that's what you get for the second person, reflexive pronouns. In the third person, again, what we're trying to do is, instead of saying she teaches her when she's talking about teaching the same person that's doing the teaching, we need to say she teaches herself in English. And in the plural, again, unless they is a different group from them, what we want to be saying is they teach themselves when they are teaching the same people that are doing the teaching. So in the third person, this is the only place where we'll get the neuter as well as the masculine and feminine. And here we have forms that are all one word, autos with the prefix ha. So those forms are going to go like this. How to, how taste, how to. In the genitive, of himself, of herself, or of itself. All should agree with the gender of the subject because it's referring back to the subject of the sentence. It's reflexing back to the subject of the sentence. In the dative, that then will be how to, how te, how to or for himself, herself, or itself. And then anything in the accusative, you're going to get how ton, how tain, or how for himself, herself, or itself. This continues now in the plural. How tone, for of themselves. How tois, how tais, how tois, to or for themselves. How tus, how tas, how ta, themselves. Anything you need in the accusative. Now here again, Attic Greek doesn't like next to ow, and as often as not will contract it, and you will get how to, how taste, how to, and so on and so forth for these reflexive pronouns. You must be really careful to look at that breathing and not to confuse it with ow to and all of its forms. So you have to look really carefully at the breathing when you see a word that begins this way. If it has a rough breathing, it is the reflexive pronoun. If it has a smooth breathing, it's autos, which can be the third person pronoun. And as you know, an intensifier, or the adjective same. Now, I will say, unfortunately, that the third person also has alternative forms in the masculine and feminine that does use a form of a pronoun plus the autos, just as we did with second and first person pronouns. The pronoun that it uses is one that you don't often see on its own in Attic Greek, but you see it quite regularly in other dialects of Greek, particularly earlier dialects of Greek. So what we'll get is svon auton in the genitive, and that svon is a third-person pronoun in the genitive that, again, you won't see in Attic prose, but you will see in other places when you learn other dialects of Greek. And that means, again, of themselves. In the dative plural, sphisin autois or sphisin autais, for to or for themselves, and sphas autus or sphas autas, for themselves in the accusative. You do see these in Attic Greek as reflexive pronouns, and that should get you really ready to read other dialects of Greek when you see those pronouns there. Now, let's see some examples. Hautein u tima al eme tima. So here we have the reflexive pronoun in the first clause and a personal pronoun in the second clause. She does not honor herself, but she honors me. Auton tima al hauton utima. And here we're going to look at those breathings and see which one is a simple personal pronoun and which one is the reflexive pronoun. And the one with the rough breathing is the reflexive pronoun. So the translation is, he honors him, but he does not honor himself. So he honors him, some other person, but he doesn't honor himself. Humas autus timasata. Honor yourselves. Ti emaute doso. What shall I give myself? And then one more example for you with a verb that you don't know yet, but I think is appropriate to teach you along with the reflexive pronoun. So, charizu saute. And that is how you would say in Greek, treat yourself. Enjoy your new knowledge about reflexive pronouns and do the drills in Hansen and Quinn to get some practice.